Hello everyone, so I'm Brewer Cristes Anastasio, one of the automotive technology here in Marikina Polytechnic College. So before we start our new topic for today, let's have a short review first about the 4-stroke cycle. So as you remember, the 4-stroke cycle, in the intake stroke, the piston is going down. The intake valve is open while the exhaust valve is closed. The air and fuel mixture will enter through the cylinder through to the intake valve. During the compression stroke, the piston is going up. Both valves are closed. The piston will compress the air and fuel mixture. In the power stroke, the spark plug will create a spark to ignite the air and fuel mixture that makes the combustion. The combustion will push down the piston. Then, through the exhaust stroke, the piston is going up. The piston will push the burnt gases through to the exhaust valve. So, the question is, how the spark plug creates a spark to ignite the air and fuel mixture? So, that is the function of the ignition system. That will be our topic for today. So our lesson for today is all about conventional ignition system. But first, let's know the function of the ignition system. So the first function of the ignition system is it must control the spark plug and the timing of the spark plug to match varying engine requirements. So the second one is it must increase battery voltage to a point where it will overcome the resistance offered by the spark plug. After we discuss the function of the ignition system, let's proceed to the components of the conventional ignition system. So the first component of the conventional ignition system is the battery. So the battery, it supplies the initial electrical energy to the ignition system primary circuit. So the second one is the ignition switch. So the ignition switch makes and breaks the circuit between the battery and the ignition coil. So the third one is the ignition coil. This is the ignition coil. So the ignition coil, it is a step-up transformer that multiplies battery voltage into several thousand of volts. So the fourth one, or the fourth component of the ignition system is the distributor. So this is the distributor. So the distributor is a separate and self-contained component within the ignition system. It performs the following function. So the first function is distribute the ignition pulses to the engine spark plug in a defined sequence. So the second one is trigger the ignition pulses. And the third one, it adjusts the ignition timing with the spark advance mechanism. So the fifth one, or the fifth component of ignition system is the condenser. This is the condenser. So the condenser suppresses arcing produced during interruption of the primary circuit. So the sixth component of ignition system is the contact point. So this is the contact point. Actually, contact point is inside our distributor. So contact point, it makes and breaks the primary circuit. So the seventh one, or the last component of ignition system, is the spark plug. So this is the spark plug. So it introduces the ignition energy generated by the ignition coil into the combustion chamber. describe the components of the conventional ignition system, let's proceed to the operation of the conventional ignition system. Actually, the operation of conventional ignition system is if the contact point is closed or the contact point is open. If the ignition switch is in ignition on and the contact point is enclosed, the battery will supply the 12-volt voltage to the ignition switch. After that, the ignition switch, it will go to the ignition coil positive terminal. The ignition coil contains the primary circuit and the secondary circuit. But after the ignition coil, it will go to the primary circuit of the ignition coil. After that, it will go to the negative part of the ignition coil. Then, it will go to the contact point, which is closed. Then, it will go to the ground. After the contact point is closed, it will open. So, after the contact point is open, the primary winding, which contains hundreds of turns, will convert, it will go to the secondary winding, which is contains 1,000 turns of wire. So, the ignition coil will produce almost 30,000 to 40,000 volts. After that, it will go to the distributor. The distributor will distribute the 1,000 of volts to the spark plug. So, the spark plug will create a spark to ignite the air and fuel mixture that compresses from the piston. In order to more understand the conventional ignition system, let's use this model of conventional ignition system. So let's switch on this conventional ignition system. As you can see, the ignition coil produces 1,000 of volts, then it will go to the distributor. The distributor will distribute the 1,000 of volts into the spark plug. This spark plug will produce a spark to ignite the air and fuel mixture to the combustion chamber. In order to make understand this conventional ignition system, let's watch this animation.